Hello everyone. It is August, which means for me at least, it's 1 month away from fall, away from pumpkin season. You will see pumpkins everywhere in my next wrap up. Just be prepared. I already am sort of dressing like it's fall though. My husband got me like all these different dresses and I got this from Cracker Barrel of all places. Anyways, it is August, so it is time to go over our July reads. I had a really good reading month in July. I read a lot of books. Let's see. I made a summary for you. So I read 12 books in total. All of them were 4 or 5-star reads, and 3 of them were novellas, which I have been really into novellas lately because I really haven't had a lot of focus to read longer books. So just having these short, like 1 to 200 page books has just been really nice. Let's see, 5 of them were books off of my physical TBR because, as I told y'all last time, I am trying to read through all of the books on there and not buy any other books, which I did end up buying 1 book this month, which I read this month as well. So I think I'm doing pretty good. We'll see. I read 2 books from the library. I read 4 books on my new Kindle. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Oh, I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna show you. I got a new Kindle. Just hold on. Ta-da! I got a Kindle. I got it on Prime Day, so I had a little bit of a deal, but it wasn't that great. But I have all these stickers. I love them. Yeah, so I got a Kindle, but I read 4 books off of that. And I read 1 audiobook. So, yeah, a lot of books. I also had 2 DNFs. So it was a really good reading month, but I had 2 DNFs. So that was interesting, but we'll talk about that. And then I completed the Good Girls Guide to Murder series. And I started the Poppy War trilogy. So that's the series that I'm in the middle of. But yeah, let's get into talking about more specifics. I'm not doing like I had been where like I'm talking about based on star rating. I'm going based on like author / like genre. So we're trying something new. But yeah, let's get into it. I want to start this video off with talking about Brandon Sanderson because I have never read Brandon Sanderson before. And everyone's like, oh my goodness, Brandon Sanderson, and all over Bookstagram. And so I finally did it. But I started with a couple of like single books, like standalones, because I'm not ready to commit to series, though I want to read Mistborn. I think that's the next trilogy after I finish the Poppy War. I think I'm going to read Mistborn trilogy just to kind of slowly make my way into it, and then we'll get started on the scary big one that there's a new book coming out soon. But I read 2 books by him. Both of them I borrowed from the library. Let's see. First one I read was Trust of the Emerald Sea, which I gave this 4.5 stars. It is a sci-fi adventure about an ordinary girl that becomes extraordinary through what her journey to save her love puts her through. I don't know what I was writing here. Save her love? Maybe loved ones? Maybe, oh, her love, the guy she loves. Okay. I don't know why that took so long. Sometimes I can't understand what past Christy wrote in these notes, so just bear with me. I did write that it feels similar to Walter Moore's style of writing. Like, just this book in particular felt like that because it's very quirky and funny and just like whimsical, but also serious at times. Like, there were like life lessons throughout it, and like all of us, it's like super quirky and funny, like the narrator, and then all of a sudden it's like super serious. Also, we have an unreliable narrator, and I loved it. I just adore this book. I want to own it. So I read it from the library, but I want to add it to my trophy shelf. it was just so good. I did give it 4.5 stars just because it just didn't feel quite a 5-star read. I don't know why. Maybe it just kind of lacked the depth for a 5-star read, which is fine to say with Brandon Sanderson because his thing is depth. But let's get into the second book that I read. So me and one of my friends, we buddy read Warbreaker. We were going to make that the first book that we read by Brandon Sanderson, but I got impatient and read Trust of the Emerald Sea first. But I'm glad I did. It was a good introduction to Brandon Sanderson. But Warbreaker, guys, okay, if you like epic sci-fi novels, this is for you. The world building, perfect. I just like, Brandon Sanderson is so good at world building and character development, and I love it. And after reading these 2 books, I'm just gonna start saying that he's the J.R.R. Tolkien of our age, because it just makes sense. Because he has, not quite as good as J.R.R. Tolkien, but he's got that up there level of really great world building and character development that you don't see in a lot of authors nowadays. At least not the ones I read. But it was very unique. It was different writing style from Trust the Emerald Sea, but not so different that it was weird. Like, you could still tell it's the same author, but it's like there are unique things to it. Let's see. Yeah. This was a 600-page book. I read it in less than a week, which is insane for me because I do not read very fast. At least I don't feel like I read very fast. And a 600-page book for me normally takes 1.5 to 2 weeks. But this, I just sped through it, which tells you how great it was because I just gobbled it up. Yeah. So he has a great way of keeping your attention. There was like a slow part around like page 300, like right in the middle. There was a little bit of slowness, but it was like 20 pages and I was just right back into it. So overall, love Brandon Sanderson. Can't wait to read stuff. I did DNF a book. I don't know if I just read too much Brandon Sanderson, but Elantris was the other book that I tried to read, and I know a lot of people like this book, and it's like highly rated, but it just didn't get me. Like, it was, again, interesting world building, character development, all that. I read 70 pages, but there's this one thing that just irked me, and I just could not deal with it. He kept referencing things. Let's see, did I write down specifics? Yeah, he kept on referencing things within a certain religion in the book and like saying words within the religion and then not explaining them. He just kind of left it there, and I kept expecting him to explain it, but then he didn't. And maybe he explains it later in the book, but I was just very confused through the entire 70 pages, and I just don't like that because I feel like by that point you should be able to understand what's going on in the world, at least to a certain extent, and I was not. So I DNF'd it. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to give up on Brandon Sanderson. This man has written so many books. Of course, there are going to be 1 or 2 that I'm not going to get into. So, yeah. Overall, I loved him, though. I can't wait to read the Mistborn trilogy. I read this apparently this was like the month of sci-fi, but I read this super cozy sci-fi duology. I don't know, I can't find if the author's going to write any more because technically it's called a series, but there's only 2 books out. It's called Monk and Robot, and it's by Becky Chambers, and it's so cute. It's so cute and sweet, and I loved it. I gave it both books 5 stars. These were novellas, so these are 2 of the novellas that I read. It's basically a cozy sci-fi about this priest, this monk, who's done with life in the city, so he decides, I'm gonna go be a tea monk, which basically, like, he just sits down, makes tea for people, and listens to their problems. Like, he's a therapist. And he loves his new job. It's a change, he loves it, but then he starts to get discontent with it. Again, like, yet again, is being discontent. And so he's like, I'm going to go off on this adventure to this ancient monastery outside of my world, because this is set in the future. And in the future, we created robots, but they gained sentience and requested freedom. So we gave it to them. And they now live out in this forest wood area, and we have a great relationship with nature in this. And honestly, this is a utopian world, and for as far as utopian worlds go, this is a genuine utopian world. And I feel like if the world was less selfish, we could actually have this, and it was just perfect. But unfortunately, the world is selfish and this would never happen. But in this world, these robots they got their own societies away from the humans. They don't interact with humans, haven't done in years. And this monk goes on this journey to find this monastery, because he's like trying to figure out what is his purpose in life. What is he doing with himself? That's his whole journey. And he runs into a robot who is coming back to check on humanity and figure out, what does humanity need? That's the question that the robots decided they needed to ask humanity. And so these two go on all these adventures together throughout the two books, and I just loved it. Like, their friendship is so adorable, and I just, if you're looking for like a cozy sci-fi read with a little bit of like fear and action and a lot of like deep philosophical stuff in it, this is a good book. I loved it. So much. And I again, these are books that I want to have on my trophy shelf. I read these on my Kindle. I need them, like, immediately. I need them. But like, they're $18 a piece. So I'm going to try and find them on thrift books or something at some point, because I'm not about to pay $18 for a book that is 150 pages. Because that sounds ridiculous. Like, I love supporting authors, but that's insane. So unless someone gets it for me for Christmas or something, we'll see. The books individually are called A Psalm for the Wild Built and A Prayer for the Crown Shy. And I love them so much. So now we're out of the author-specific books. We're getting into the actual, like, genres. So I read 3 horror/thriller books. I don't know why. It's kind of not great for mental health, but we still read them. So first of all, I read Nothing But Black and Teeth by Cassandra Call. I really like Cassandra Call. I like her style of writing. I think that she is very interesting, and like her horror stuff. I own one other book by her. This is one of the physical books that I read. I gave it 4 stars. It felt like if Studio Ghibli made a horror movie. And that's all I want to say about it, because I feel like that's enough to make some people read it. You will be confused. Cassandra Call tends to leave you questioning certain things that happen, and like whether or not it was real kind of stuff. And I really like that, actually. Like, normally I don't like things being left unknown, but I do like it in her writing. For some reason, it's okay. This was a novella, the 3rd novella that I read. There was a message in it, and I wrote down, I think the message was about how easily we humans can become the monsters that we fear so much. It was so good. Yeah, so I'm just gonna leave it at that. I recommend this book for anyone who likes horror. If you don't like horror, don't read it, because it is a little gory. So, but yeah, the second book that I DNF'd is in this category, and this this was Pilgrim by Mitchell Luthi. I DNF'd this about 50% of the way through. I was reading this on my Kindle, and it's a medieval horror, which I read a medieval horror last year and loved it. So I was like, oh, I'll love this book. It was less medieval horror. Like, it's set during the time of the Crusades, the Second Crusade specifically. And so it has that starting out, but like then it gets into this other stuff, which I'm not going to spoil it, but it gets into this other stuff that's really not medieval horror. Like, in the last medieval horror book I read, they stayed in their timeline, they stayed in their world, and it wasn't like that was it. But this one is very spiritual horror. And I just wasn't really getting into it. It wasn't really like pulling me in and keeping me there. Like, I'm surprised that I even got as far as I did. I just kept hoping it would pick up, but like they kept running into the same problems over and over again. And I was just like, I don't want to read this anymore. So yeah, I DNF'd it, especially since it was 700 pages. I got 300 pages into this book before I realized I didn't want to read it anymore. So yeah, yeah. Let's get into something else. So as I said, I finished the Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. Yeah. I read As Good as Dead. This is by Holly Jackson. You probably have heard of it because it's amazing. I gave this book 4 stars. I did not give it 5 stars like I did the first book. It was well written. I said well written. Pacing was perfect. But the problem that I had with it was that it felt a little too real. Like, we go to books for escapism, and I know it's true crime, but it just felt a little too real, that because Pip is dealing in this book with trauma from the second book, like major PTSD. I said I wasn't gonna kick the camera this time. I still kicked the camera. Anyways, I almost DNF'd it halfway through just because I was just getting annoyed with just how realistic it was, because like I'm over here trying to read books for escapism, but then I'm not getting it at all. I mean, there's a part of me that's fascinated by learning about trauma and how it affects us and stuff like that, but then I'm also like, I'm not reading this book to learn about trauma. I'm reading this book to escape reality, and it's not helping with that. But I did not DNF it because I was like, I am almost done with the series, and I'm about to watch the show that came out yesterday. No, 2 days ago, because it's August 3rd. And I need to finish it. So I read it. Pip made some choices that I didn't agree with, which is part of the reason I almost DNF'd it. And I was kind of uncomfortable with the way things turned out. I'll leave it at that. Morally uncomfortable with the way it turned out. But overall, it was a good book. And I think based on like this way that Holly Jackson was playing Pip, it was a good ending for her. It made sense within the context of the storyline. I'm interested because, as I said, I have watched the Netflix show. I hate that it came out for us on Netflix in America in August, not July. But I watched it in 2 days. I really liked it. There were like some minor changes, which like, I understand there's going to be changes in the show and like the author wasn't involved, but I was still like, couldn't you just stick to the book? Like, that's always my desire, and I kind of get annoyed when it changes. But it was really good. I enjoyed it. Highly recommend reading it or watching the show, even if you haven't read the book. I think it would be good either way. Maybe if you watch the show, you'd want to read the book. I do want to get a British version of the first book in the series, just because I want to see if there's any differences between them, because I know there are, but I wonder if there's more differences than the setting, because if there are, then that might explain some of the differences in the show from the book that I read. So I want to do that at some point, but not anytime soon. I'm done with this series for a while. But I am excited to see where the show goes, and I hope they do all 3 books, because I think that would be really cool. But yeah, let's get into the next section of genre of books. So beyond reading a lot of sci-fi, I also read a lot of cozy books. So I already told you about Monk and Robot, but I've read 3 other cozy books because I needed coziness when I was reading those horror books. So I read Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater, which is a Regency fairy tale, and I loved it. Like 5 stars. Like, if you liked Emily Wilde, you will like the Regency fairy tale books. Just great. I'm on the second one now. I'm actually reading the second one because I loved it so much. So I got it from the library and now I'm reading it. But yeah, Half a Soul. This was one of the ones off of my TBR. I did not expect this to be as good as it was. It was so good. But yeah, if you like Emily Wilde, it's a similar style book. And yeah, I really loved it. The second book that I read that falls into the cozy fantasy, for me at least, is Pride and Prejudice. I finally read Pride and Prejudice. And I loved it. I understand the hype now. I have never been able to make it through. Like, I tried reading it multiple times in like high school, but could never like make it past like the 2/3 mark. But I did it. I did it finally. I read it all the way through. I loved it. It was amazing. So much better than the movie. Like, I still love the movie, but the book was amazing. And I listened to this on audiobook while I was like playing Minecraft, and it was perfect. Yeah. Next book, I'm gonna get a drink of water actually first, and then we'll. Moon Soul by Nathaniel Luscombe. I don't know how to say that. 5 stars. Yet another cozy sci-fi novel. This one was not exactly what I was expecting it to be, but it was still really, really good. It's about this kid, it's a girl. She actually like is part Spyran, which is the alien race that lives on this moon that she lives on, and she can read memories in the sand of the moon. So that's her job, is she does that for people. She reads their memories, but it's very like taxing emotionally and mentally. So she gets to the point where she's like, I can't do this anymore. So she starts trying new jobs and figuring life out and just finding out her purpose in life and what makes her happy. And it's really sweet and comforting and cozy and just beautiful. And I highly recommend, if you're looking for a cozy sci-fi read this one along with Muck and Robot. It was so good. It was so sweet. And I just I just loved her. Let's see. I also wrote, August's story is so relatable. Her struggles with identity and burnout feel exactly like my own. This was so encouraging to read and helpful to my way of thinking about my own experiences. So that's my overall thought. Yeah, I loved her. If you're looking for another philosophical, cozy sci-fi read, there you go. Apparently this is my favorite genre or something. I need more recommendations, so please let me know. But yeah, let's get into the next genre. I also read adventure books. So let's read that. The Adventures of Amini Al Sarifi by Shannon Chakraborty. 4 stars. I feel like it was a little slow and the pacing was kind of off. That's why I gave it a lower rating. But the story itself, character development, plot, loved it. Loved it. Like, this is a good adventure. It's about a pirate who's like my parents' age, who she like has retired. She's like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm raising my family. And now someone like drags her back into the pirate life, and she has to go on this one last mission. It's so good. It's like steeped in like Islamic folklore, and I just ate it up. I love folklore, especially from different cultures. Like, this was so good. And it's set during the same time as The Pilgrim, during like the Second Crusade. But it was way better than that. So I really liked that. I really liked a lot of the historical and cultural references, while it also still had a lot of these folklore elements. So I thought it was like fantasy realism, but it was so good. Yeah, I want to read it again. I would actually watch this as a movie. If it was made into a movie, I would watch it. Let's see. I started the Poppy War trilogy. I'm on the second book now. I think it's called The Dragon Republic. I read the first book, which is called The Poppy War. I gave it 5 stars. This book has the same vibes as Red Queen, like in a lot of different ways, which if you've read Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard, you'll know what I'm talking about. Like, this is a very similar style. It's very dark, war, young girl who seems to be no one becomes someone, like kind of vibe. And it's just very interesting. And I love the darkness of it, but it's still like you're disconnected enough that it's still not real, you know? But I really think that R.F. Kuang really like describes war well in this book. So if you're wondering what war really is like, this is a good book to read. Yeah. Very good descriptions. Paint a very clear picture of war. Rin is definitely an anti-hero. She is not a hero. She is an anti-hero. And yeah, I love her. Don't kill my baby. I am struggling to get through the second book because she's kind of dramatic. And so disagreeing with some of her choices. But I'm going to read through because my best friend has told me that the third book is better. So I'm like gonna push through the second book so that I can get to the third book. But yeah, I enjoyed the first book a lot. I definitely recommend it, and I feel like you could read the first book and just let that be it if you wanted to. Yeah, the last book I read, and I just finished this yesterday, is The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. I watched the movie, now I've read the book, and I feel like they're pretty comparable. I feel like the movie was a really good adaptation of the book. But yeah, I like getting the like detailed view of Snow's brain. It was very interesting. I did rate this 4 stars though, because I still don't understand why he suddenly turned on Lucy Gray. I still don't get it. So if someone could explain that to me, that would be great. But overall, I love the book. I cannot wait for the Haymitch origin story. I'm excited for that. But yeah, pretty good reading month with that. So overall, really great reading month. Even with those 2 DNFs and the couple books that I struggled through. But I am currently reading The Dragon Republic, 10,000 Stitches, and Cultish by Amanda Montell. So I'm already starting out this month pretty good. I'm excited to talk about next month's stuff. I'm trying to figure out stuff to do for more YouTube videos, so hopefully that'll be coming soon. But right now, I'm just trying to finish out the summer and get to fall. So join me in my search for pumpkin spice. At some point, I'm going to do some fall cozy reads and talk to you about them, maybe some Halloween recs. So I'm excited for that, but not this month because it's still summer. It's still blazing hot outside. So it's not fall yet. It's not fall until it feels like fall. And September is when it starts to feel like fall in Greenville. So we're waiting for that. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed listening to me ramble about all these books, and you come back next month and share this with all your friends. So yeah, bye.